The day I came home to find my wife gone, the kids missing, and my bank accounts emptied was the day my world shattered. There was no warning, no fight the night before, no sign that she was about to vanish. One moment, I thought I had a family, and the next, I stood in an empty living room staring at silence that I rushed to check the accounts, my hands shaking so badly I could barely type in the password. 0. Every single account, our savings, our checking, even the emergency fund I had been building for years, wiped clean. I felt my stomach drop as the reality hit me. She had planned this. My name is Jason, and I am 39 years old. Right now, I am facing the most devastating betrayal of my life. My wife has left me, taken our children, and stolen every cent I had worked for. And yet, as I stood in that hollow house, I didn't know the half of it. There was a secret she had been hiding for years, one I was about to uncover, and it would change everything I thought I knew about my marriage. That first night, I barely slept. My mind kept spinning with questions. Where did she go? Why did she do this? And most of all, how long had she been preparing behind my back? The silence of the house felt heavier than bricks on my chest. That I had no idea then that this was just the beginning, and the truth waiting for me was darker than I ever imagined. The next morning, I wandered through the house like a ghost. Every room felt colder, stripped of the life that once filled it. The kids' rooms were the hardest. Their beds were neatly made, but their clothes, toys, and favorite books were gone. It wasn't a chaotic escape, it was careful, deliberate, planned. That I opened the closets and saw empty hangers where her dresses once hung. Even the bathroom shelves were bare, every bottle, every toothbrush missing. That's when it hit me, she hadn't just left in a moment of anger. She had been preparing for this for weeks, maybe months. That in the kitchen, I noticed a drawer slightly ajar. Inside, where we usually kept receipts and old mail, there was a folder I hadn't seen before. It contained copies of documents, bank statements, credit reports, even a few letters addressed to her from a P.O. box I didn't know existed. My hands trembled as I flipped through them. Why would she need a separate mailbox? Then, tucked in the back of the folder, I found something that made my heart stop, a rental agreement for an apartment across town, signed 3 months earlier. She had already secured a new place, all while sleeping next to me every night, pretending everything was fine. The betrayal cut deeper with every page. Not only had she taken the kids and the money, but she had been living a lie right in front of me. I slammed the folder shut, my chest burning with a mix of rage and disbelief. That night, I called every number I could think of, her phone, her sister, even her best friend. No one picked up. The silence was louder than words. That I realized then that if I wanted answers, I couldn't wait for them to come to me. I would have to start digging, and what I would uncover next would shake me even more. The morning after finding the rental agreement, I knew I couldn't handle this alone. I called an attorney recommended by a colleague, Mark Reynolds, a man in his early 40s with a reputation for being brutally honest. I sat across from him in his office, the folder of documents shaking in my hands. That I laid everything out, the empty accounts, the missing kids, the rental agreement, the hidden P.O. box. He listened silently, occasionally jotting down notes, his brow furrowed deeper with each detail. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and exhaled sharply. Jason, he said, this wasn't spontaneous. This was calculated. She's been planning this for a long time. The rental agreement, the P.O. box, the withdrawals, it's all part of a bigger pattern. And it means one thing, she's building a case against you. My stomach dropped. A case? Against me? For what? He tapped the folder with his pen. Custody. She's taken the kids, drained the accounts, and positioned herself as the primary caregiver. If she files first, she controls the narrative. And with the money in her hands, she has the resources to fight you hard. I felt the air leave my lungs. It wasn't just about betrayal anymore, it was about war. A custody battle I never saw coming. Then Mark looked me straight in the eye and said something that froze me. Jason, I need to ask you something. Has your wife ever hinted at secrets? Anything she didn't want you to know? The word secrets lingered in the air like a bad omen. My mind raced through the past years, all the little red flags I had ignored. The late nights out. The unexplained calls she brushed off as work. The way she sometimes looked at me like a stranger. Why? I asked, my voice hoarse. Mark slid a sheet of paper across the desk. It was a notice of debt collection, addressed to her. Tens of thousands of dollars in unpaid loans I had never known about, because, he said quietly, I think your wife has been hiding more than just an escape plan. She's been living a double life. My hands trembled as I stared at the document. For the first time, I realized I hadn't just lost my wife, I had never really known her at all. I drove home from Mark's office with the debt notice on the passenger seat, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. Tens of thousands of dollars. How could she have kept this from me? We filed taxes together, shared bills, planned vacations. Or at least, I thought we did. That night, I dug deeper into the folder I'd found in the kitchen drawer. Most of the statements were carefully selected, but one envelope had slipped through. Inside was a letter from a credit agency demanding payment on an outstanding balance of $42,000. My wife had never mentioned it once that I searched the house like a madman. Old boxes, drawers, even the attic. Finally, in a shoe box hidden at the back of her closet, I found the rest. More letters, all stamped in red, final notice. Some were for credit cards I didn't know existed. Others were from personal loan companies I had never heard of. The total was staggering, over $120,000 in debt, all under her name. My legs gave out, and I sank onto the floor surrounded by papers that smelled faintly of dust and guilt. When I told Mark, he wasn't surprised. She didn't just leave you, Jason. She left the mess behind. By draining your accounts, she covered her tracks. She'll try to claim the money was hers, that she managed the household while you worked. It's a strategy I've seen before. But what broke me wasn't the money. It was the realization that for years, while I thought we were building a future together, she was secretly digging a financial grave behind my back. Every dinner out, every time she reassured me we were fine, every smile, it had all been a mask that I couldn't help but think about my kids. Did she plan to raise them in this mess? Did she even care what kind of legacy she was leaving for them? As I sat there with those papers spread out on the table, one thought anchored itself in my mind: if she could lie about this, what else had she been hiding? And soon, I would find out. The rental agreement I had found listed an address across town in a modest complex I had never visited before. My hands shook as I drove there, half afraid of what I might find. The building looked ordinary: peeling paint, kids' bikes scattered near the entrance, neighbors chatting on balconies. But to me, it felt like walking into enemy territory that I pretended to be interested in renting when I spoke to the manager. He didn't ask many questions. When I gave my wife's name, his eyes flickered with recognition. Ah, yes. She signed a lease a few months back. Haven't seen her much, though. He handed me a spare key without hesitation, thinking I was helping her. My heart pounded as I climbed the stairs and slid it into the lock. The apartment was barely furnished, just a couch, a table, and a few boxes stacked neatly against the wall. It smelled of dust and faint perfume. I opened the boxes, expecting to find kids' clothes or old photos. Instead, I found binders, dozens of them. Inside were bank slips, withdrawal receipts, and more debt notices. But this time, something new: documents with another man's name. My chest tightened as I read through them. Wire transfers. Shared credit applications. Even a photo tucked between the papers: my wife with a man I had never seen before, his arm around her, both of them smiling like they belonged together. It wasn't just debt she had been hiding. It was another life. I stumbled back, gripping the table for balance. The betrayal went beyond money now: it was personal, intimate, complete. She hadn't just left me. She had replaced me. I took the photo and a stack of documents with me, my mind racing. When I showed them to Mark later, his expression hardened. This changes everything. She's not just guilty of financial misconduct, she's committed fraud. And if we prove she funneled your money into this other life, the court will not look kindly on her. That night, I sat alone in my car outside the apartment, staring at the lights flickering in the windows. I thought about my kids, asleep somewhere inside that maze of lies, and I swore to myself I would bring the truth out into the open, no matter how ugly it got. I couldn't keep living in silence. Armed with the photo and the stack of documents from the secret apartment, I drove to my wife's sister's house, one of the few places I suspected she might be hiding with the kids. My pulse hammered as I rang the doorbell. When the door opened, there she was. She looked startled at first, then quickly put on that same cold expression I'd seen the night she left. "What are you doing here?" she asked sharply. That I held up the photo. "Recognize this?" Her face drained of color for a split second before she scoffed. "That's none of your business." "None of my business?" My voice shook with fury. "You emptied our accounts, you took the kids, and now I find out you've been living a double life with another man. You made it my business the moment you lied to me for years." Her sister hovered nervously in the background, clutching the doorway. "Maybe you two should stay out of it," I snapped, my eyes locked on my wife. She crossed her arms, her voice dripping with contempt. "You think waving around a few papers changes anything? The kids are with me. I'm their mother. Courts always favor the mother." I stepped closer, lowering my voice to a razor's edge. "Not when there's proof of fraud, hidden debt, and money funneled into another man's pocket. I have everything I need, and trust me, the judge will see it." For the first time, she faltered. Her eyes darted to the papers in my hand, then back to me. Beneath her mask of arrogance, I saw a flicker of fear. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "Watch me," I said. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the sound of my kids playing somewhere in the house. That sound cut deeper than any argument, because no matter how much anger I carried, all I wanted was to hold them again. That I turned to leave, but before I walked out the door, I looked back at her one last time. "You may think you've won, but the truth is already catching up to you. And when it does, you'll lose everything you tried to steal." Driving away, I felt both sick and determined. The battle lines had been drawn, and this time, I wasn't the one caught off guard. The first day in court felt like stepping onto a battlefield. I sat beside Mark, my attorney, with folders stacked high on the desk in front of us. Across the aisle, my wife looked polished, calm, and untouchable. She wore the same smug expression she'd had the night she left, as if she truly believed she was untouchable. Her lawyer painted the picture I expected. She was the devoted mother, the victim of a husband too busy with work to care for his family. She asked for full custody, spousal support, and access to what little money I had left. Some family members sat behind her, nodding along, whispering in sympathy, but when it was our turn, Mark's voice cut through the courtroom like a blade. He began with the financial records, the drained accounts, the unexplained withdrawals. Then came the debt letters, spread out across the judge's desk like evidence in a crime scene. Gasps rippled through the room when the total, over $120,000, was read aloud. Then my wife shifted in her chair, but her mask didn't fully crack until Mark pulled out the photo. The one of her and the other man, smiling together like they had built their own secret life. He placed it in front of the judge along with documents showing shared credit applications and wire transfers. Her lawyer objected, but the judge silenced him with a firm hand. "This evidence will stay," the judge declared. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. She avoided looking at me, her hands twisting in her lap, her perfect composure unraveling inch by inch. The climax came when Mark presented proof of the rental agreement for the hidden apartment, signed months before she left. "Your Honor," he said, his voice steady, "this was not the decision of a desperate wife. This was premeditated fraud. She stole funds, concealed debts, and built a second life while plotting to destroy my clients." The judge leaned back, silent for a long moment, then finally said, "We will continue this hearing with the custody review. But I can tell you this much, this court does not look kindly on deceit." Walking out of that courtroom, I felt the tide turning. For the first time since she left, I wasn't the man left broken in an empty house. I was a father fighting for his children, armed with the truth, and the truth was finally being heard. When the custody hearing began, my heart pounded harder than it had on the first day in court. Money, accounts, even betrayal, I could take those hits. But the thought of losing my kids, of watching them grow up under the influence of lies, was unbearable. Her lawyer wasted no time. He painted me as an absent father, too focused on my career, too distant to be present for the children. He spoke of my wife as the primary caregiver, the loving mother who had sacrificed everything for the kids. From the corner of my eye, I saw her nodding along, crocodile tears sliding down her cheeks. Then Mark stood. His tone was calm, but every word landed like a hammer. "Your Honor, we are not here to question my client's love for his children. We are here to show who is fit to provide stability, honesty, and a safe environment for them." He introduced evidence I hadn't even known he had, emails from school administrators showing it was me who attended most parent-teacher conferences, my name signed on permission slips, my presence at every medical appointment. Piece by piece, he dismantled the image of me as an absent father. Then came the twist I hadn't expected. Mark called Rachel, my wife's cousin, to the stand. I had no idea she was even willing to testify. She cleared her throat nervously but spoke with courage. "Your Honor, I've seen how the kids are when they're with Jason. They're happy, secure. With their mother, it's different. She's distracted, often leaving them with babysitters while she spends time elsewhere." The courtroom buzzed. My wife's face turned crimson, her lawyer frantically whispering in her ear. But it was too late. The damage was done. When the judge spoke, the room fell silent. Given the evidence of financial misconduct, hidden debt, and questionable judgment, this court cannot in good conscience grant sole custody to the mother. Custody will be shared, with primary residence awarded to the father. I closed my eyes as the words sank in. My chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with relief. I wasn't losing my children. Despite everything she had done, despite the lies and betrayal, the truth had spoken louder. As we walked out of the courthouse, my wife shot me a look filled with venom. But I didn't care. I had my children back, and no amount of bitterness could take that away. The last day in court felt like the closing chapter of a nightmare I never asked for. I sat rigid in my chair, my children's drawings tucked into my briefcase for strength, while the judge prepared to deliver the decision. My wife sat across from me, her once confident posture now fragile, her lawyer whispering desperately in her ear. The judge began by addressing the finances. "This court has reviewed extensive evidence of mismanagement, undisclosed debt, and fraudulent transfers carried out by the respondent." He paused, his eyes narrowing on her. "Therefore, the debts incurred under her name will remain solely her responsibility. The petitioner will not be held liable." The words hit me like a wave of relief. $120,000 of hidden debt, no longer a noose around my neck. Then came the accounts. As for the funds withdrawn from joint accounts, documentation shows the respondent diverted these for personal use unrelated to family needs. Restitution in the amount of $78,000 is hereby ordered. Gasps rippled through the room. My wife's face drained of color, and her lawyer slumped back in his chair. Finally, the judge addressed custody once more. The court reaffirms its earlier ruling, joint custody, with primary residence granted to the father. The respondent will have visitation rights but must provide proof of financial stability before requesting any modifications. In that moment, I felt years of weight lift from my shoulders. The lies, the betrayal, the fear of losing everything, it all began to dissolve. She had walked into court expecting to strip me of my children and my life's work, but she walked out carrying the burden of her own deceit. As the gavel struck, I glanced at her one last time. Her eyes burned with hatred, but beneath it, I saw something else, defeat. That I gathered my papers, thanked Mark quietly, and walked out of that courtroom into the crisp air of freedom. For the first time since this nightmare began, I could finally breathe, but I knew there was one more step left, closing this chapter for good, not just in court, but in my heart. When the dust finally settled, my house was no longer silent, it was alive again. The sound of my kids' laughter filled the rooms that once felt like tombs, and for the first time in months, I slept without waking in the middle of the night drenched in fear. The court had given me back more than custody, it had given me back hope. My wife vanished into the background of her own mess. With her debt swallowing her whole and her reputation shattered, she could no longer control me, no longer hold my life hostage. Sometimes I still catch myself wondering how long she had been living that double life, lying with such ease, smiling while she built an escape plan. But I've learned not to linger on questions that don't matter anymore. What matters is this: I stood up, I fought, and I refused to let lies define me. I protected my children, my future, and my dignity. I learned that betrayal cuts deep, but truth cuts deeper. So here I am, telling you my story. My name is Jason, I am 39 years old, and I survived the kind of storm I never thought I could weather. And if you've listened all the way until the end, thank you, it means more than you know. If I can leave you with one piece of advice, it's this: never ignore the small red flags, because they grow into storms when left unchecked. Protect your family, protect your peace, and don't ever be afraid to fight for what's right. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, it helps more than you imagine. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, truth always finds a way out.